Thank you.
How did you decide? So obviously you had the family business.
You decided not to stay in the business.
Correct.
And that's okay. Which is weird because like I have 4 kids and we were talking about this yesterday.
It's not weird. It's unique. We already discussed this.
Okay. So we've told our children several times, like, no, we don't want you to be an HVAC business owner. We want you to be what you're good at and what you have passion in. Naturally, they're like, you're a successful HVAC company, business owner. You have 2 of them. You have a podcast. I want to do something like that. Naturally, because you're successful at it, I need to do that. But it's been our mission over the past multiple years to make sure that they understand, hey, look, if you're good at being a doctor, you enjoy being a doctor, I'd rather you be a doctor, be a nurse, be whatever you're really good at. Because if you take over a business that I have, which there's a strong possibility that I won't have it by the time you're wanting to do it, because like I am a serial entrepreneur, you're going to be miserable. And so I love the fact that you recognized that and you stood up and said, no, I'm going to do something different. That's really cool.
Thank you.
How did you do that? As an individual, how did you?
Especially you have
your family.
You have a big family,
Yes.
like a really big family.
Crazy. Yeah.
How large is your family?
11 children.
11 kids, man.
Yeah. A lot of
Do y'all
kids.
not have cable?
Back then, no. Cable got like really popular in like 83, 84, right? Like 80, like
Yeah.
when MTV and stuff came out. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know what their deal was,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Papa was a Rolling Stone. When I think about my choices, and you know how we talk about you just know things innately. And I remember growing up and I'd be with cousins or friends and common types of upbringing where the girls are doing most of the stuff in the house and the guys aren't, because that's
Very
the
much
timing
like that's
that
like our kids.
my
That's like
parents-
when we were kids,
Yep.
the exact same way.
My
Yeah.
parents, that's what they model, and you do what you see. And I remember my cousins and everybody saying, Lily, you have to learn how to do these things, and you have to learn how to take care of a family and take care of a husband and blah, blah. And I remember thinking, I'm not going to do any of that. I'll have somebody who works for me to do that. I won't be doing those things. I always kind of innately had that in me. I just didn't know how to let it out. So when it came to the time to say, hey, I knew, or what do you want to do? I knew I wanted to go to school, which nobody else in the family did, by the way. Because why go to school? He's going to run the shop.
Yeah, sure.
And I know that sounds crazy, but that's a thing.
Oh, yeah.
It's a thing. Why would we? First off, there's 11 kids. Everybody's not going to college.
How we're going to afford this just to go back to the shop
Yeah.
to do what Dad already does and knows how to do?
Yeah, that's a thing. So it's not like you're getting encouraged and your parents are like, let's look at scholarships and you've got like
Yeah.
help. And not only that, as I mentioned in my talk, everybody in all your friends also, their parents are in trades too. And so it's kind of like, well, you can work for my dad's roofing company. And so even though it's a thing where, some of the kids go to college, I went to a very college prep high school. In general, our circle was more, oh no, you're just going to work in tech, or not in tech, but in the trades. So you don't need to spend that money to do that. And so I knew that I wanted to go to school. I knew that I wanted to have something else. I knew I wanted my world to be bigger. I didn't know how to make it bigger. I didn't know what steps to take, but I knew I was going to expose myself to different inputs that other folks didn't. And then, of course, what goes along with not going to college after graduating from high school and working at the shop means you're having early relationships and overcommitting to relationships and popping out kids you can't afford and all of this. And I saw my brothers do these things, and I was just like, oh my God, no. I refuse to have my family living in my parents' basement,
Yep.
right? And that was a thing. Some people can relate to that. It's not a
Oh,
bad
very-
thing,
very true.
but you don't want to shoot for it.
Yeah.
And so
It's not a goal.
it's not a goal. And so I saw like these outcomes from older brothers and sisters not being challenged enough, not having a larger view of the world. And I said, I want something different. And I heard my parents complaining about them all the time and having to support them and
Yeah.
having to create roles at the shop so they could have a job, right? All these really,
There's a lot of our listeners probably can relate to that because there's a lot of family businesses
Oh,
here.
it's awful.
A lot of husband, wives, and their kids and all that type of stuff. So
it's awful. It was awful for me because I was always a go-getter and I was always like, let go of the, cut the slack,
Yeah.
cut the slack, let's move forward. And so this is a long way of saying that I did lean into the idea that I needed to do something different, and I did. And I moved away without any support, which is very difficult.
That is tough.
Without any support.
When you
without-
have a big family and that naturally you
hard.
have a large support system with that family,
It's hard.
to move away I can't imagine that.
I had $300
Wow.
and a car and I put all my clothes in the back. Just drove off. Just
Did you know, like, did you have?
I drove off. Right. I did have someplace to go.
Okay.
My first stop was Minnesota, so I knew a girl up there, and I knew her like just loosely. She wasn't a
Yeah.
good friend. I just knew her loosely. And I said, hey, I'm coming to, at that time you paged people. It's like, hey, I'm going to be traveling and I'll be in the cities, because you call it the cities. Are you going to be around? Like, maybe we can grab a drink. And it was a Friday. And she was like, oh my gosh, it takes 6 hours to get from Milwaukee to Chicago to Minneapolis. And she's like, oh my gosh, my radio company or whatever it was that she worked for advertising is having a party tonight, free drinks, free everything, meet us there. I drove to Minnesota. I stopped in a gas station. I changed my clothes and I went to that party. That's where things kind of launched for me for that particular expression of my life. I actually ended up being in Chicago after that, but my first launch was Minnesota. And while I was there, she was like, you should meet my boss. And they were like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm not really sure, just kind of passing through, looking for that next thing. And they were like, you should come and talk to us on Monday. We're looking for people. We're looking for people
Talk
who
about a leap of faith
Opportunity.
there.
yeah, have, strong blah, blah. I was like, I don't have strong anything, but whatever. And that's kind of where I got my start. And so, yeah, I went from just having nothing to do or no place to go. And then she was like, well, where are you going to stay? And I was like, well, I'm still figuring out. She's like, you should stay with me.
Wow.
And she gave me a place to stay.
Wow.
And so I found a job and a place to stay, and it wasn't perfect. I had to sleep on an air mattress for a little while in an apartment with like 6 other people.
Yeah.
But came from a big family, so it was fine.
Yeah.
And I wanted so badly to do my own thing. So that's it.
Do you feel like if you were the oldest child, your life would be different because you were able to see the things that your older siblings did that you not necessarily a bad thing, but things that you realized that that's not the way you wanted to
Oh
do
my
it?
God, yes. I'm so grateful for my birth order. Just so you know.
And you were the youngest
Yeah,
of
I am
11.
so grateful for my birth order. And
So they got to practice on 10 other, and then you're like,
Oh
okay,
yeah, and my parents were older by the time I came around, and so they were kind of like,
calmer.
just do it, right? And so, which I
They
get.
gave up at that point. Like, I'm done.
Just do it. And so I'm super grateful for that. It certainly informed my experience.
So one of the things that really this is all very great. Types of self-care, 4 tips to unlock you, being normal is enough, where is a C just fine. Like these are amazing.
Well, and what we'll do for those listening, because obviously you weren't here, but there's a
presentation
QR
was
code
great,
and a
yeah.
link. We'll get that for you, so that way you can have access to some of these resources.